I'm just going to do a little preamble before we get into it and just talk about what Telos Infinity is. So in 2014, young Roger over there challenged me at the IBC show when I worked for another company, and he said, "Why is intercom matrix-based?" I said, "I don't know. It shouldn't be matrix-based. Nothing else in communications is, so let's do something clever." I went to work for Telos Alliance, and in 2018 we launched a product called Telos Infinity. And Telos Infinity is a matrixless intercom system. And when we launched it, it was all hardware. So it was all based around panels like the one that you see in the middle, and belt packs and stuff like that using AS67. We fast forward to the pandemic, and we couldn't get the chipsets. Our customers were saying, "We want to work from home. We need a way to do that without the heavy lifting of sending a panel to us and relying on our production staff to try and work out their own ISP and how they connect." So we took the software elements of the hardware and we managed to build the same intercom system into software, and we did it in a way that's still matrixless, and every single software panel from the VIP range, which is here, is an individual software element. It runs on AWS, it runs on-prem, it can be hybridized with the hardware, so it's a complete system. And that forwards us to what we're here to talk about with Anthony, which is how Eurosport used it in Paris this summer. So Anthony, when did you first become aware of the Telos Infinity product? Where did our journey start?
It was pre-pandemic, so probably IBC 2019, I think, if I remember well. We were looking at a system which, as you mentioned, was matrixless. In our case, we have several offices across Europe, and having an operator in Sofia, Bulgaria, talking to his commentator, who sits 5 meters away from him, having his coordination channel going to Paris and back to Sofia was a bit weird. So we were looking for that kind of system, and that's where we started looking at the Telos system.
Yeah, so at the time the hardware system didn't really work for Eurosport. It wasn't ready to scale in the way that they needed, so they went down a more traditional route. I mean, like as mentioned, the pandemic. How did the pandemic affect your workflows? I mean, how did it change what you needed to do?
At the start, almost all the events stopped, so we stopped a lot of lives. So then we had to we had to keep producing content. A lot of people were not able to come to the office anymore, so we had to leverage a lot of remote and home production, which has been quite challenging, and keeping the communication with the people who were working at home was quite difficult as well.
Yeah, so our first engagement when Eurosport came back to us after we launched the VIP product was to set up a small 32-panel, 32 4-wire POC on our own AWS tenancy. I think the first one was, and that gave you a sandbox to play with.
Yeah, we started playing with all the panels on different use cases. So for on-site, some of small productions, remote productions that we had started post-pandemic, and the operators on site were talking together through the first panels that we had set up.
And what sort of devices were they using? Just computers or phones?
Smartphones, usually. Yeah, smartphones.
Yeah. So I mean, this fed back into the development process. We were learning very early on with one of our first adopters of the product how it worked, how it didn't work. What were you hoping to achieve from the first POC?
That was really to see how the operators would handle it, how it was practical to use it from a smartphone, how it would interact with our on-prem system, how we'd be able to connect it, because on-site people were talking to the MCR guys who are using the on-prem system. So that was really to see, have a working system. How could we, when you have to send an invite to a guy who has been onboarded at the last minute on a production or something like that, and how we could develop against it, how we could really take all the advantage of it. And when you have just a demo panel or something, you never know really how it's going to work. So having a really fully working system connected to our on-prem system was really the best way to see how it would work, how the operators would adopt it.
So the next step was to move the POC into your production environment, so it was on your tenancy. Around that time, I think the Warner Brothers Discovery IT teams became more involved. Did that change anything? Did it challenge us at all?
Yeah, every time you involve IT people, it becomes challenging, you know. So, so yeah. Anyway, they helped us a lot because the first system that we've set was quite small, and we wanted to be ready to increase. Even if at that time when we started, we remained on the 32 panels, but we wanted to be able to increase it depending on how we would use it. So, and then they've helped us a lot. We realized that when we started increasing the system, we had some latency issues.
Yeah.
Dealing with the multicast, all the multicast flows in the cloud was not so easy as we would have thought at the beginning. So then the guys from the infrastructure helped us a lot on that. They've been working with your development teams as well.
Yeah.
To improve. That's where the Switch I/O came into the game.
Yeah, I think about that time, that's when we decided, or you guys decided, to move from a 32 4-wire system to 128 panels and 128 4 wires. And I don't think we ever told the guys at Warner Brothers, but at that point we hadn't scaled up a system. You were the biggest system we dealt with. And we found that when we moved from the entire system running on one EC2 on AWS, above 64 endpoints, if you like, we broke the Mac VLAN infrastructure of the system. So we had to very, very quickly pedal and come up with a new mechanism, which was to move onto a second EC2 and then up from there. And I think that's about the time that Switch I/O became involved. Switch I/O was a company that built a cloud-based multicast switch. It's all in the name. And that gives me the opportunity to throw up the architectural diagram of the system that we built. We also moved up shortly after the 128 to 256, which was getting in readiness for the first event for the game. So we then at 256 panels, 256 4 wires, and as you can see, or you may not be able to see, but on the left-hand side of that screen, you can see the 4 wires are connected from the cloud to Paris using Opus.
Yeah, to the on-prem system, we are using SIP connections right now to do the connection, and that's still something. That's our next improvement topic, is really the contribution between prem to cloud to have faster connection.
So that sort of fast forwards us. We get to May 2024, and I should have said at the outset, this all started in June 2022. So this is nearly 2 years in of testing and developing the product and the workflow. That's when you did the design freeze for Paris, and that's the point where we could sit back and relax. Well, we could, you couldn't. So how did you use it? How did you use it in Paris in reality?
During the game's 3 main usage. So the biggest one I would say was to act as a DR platform. So if our main system was going down, we needed to keep the communication between all the offices, the workspaces, and etc. So something like almost 200 panels were dedicated to the DR platform. Fortunately, we did not need, not fully, I would say, we did not have to use it. The second usage was for some of the teams who were using panels on their smartphones for field reporters.
Yep.
So connected to the PCRs through our on-prem system. And then the third usage was expansion of our current system. We had, you've seen the numbers from Nuno a few minutes ago about the number of concurrent events, and we had to do some coordinate. We had to coordinate all the commentators on. I think the busiest day was almost 50 concurrent events. So we needed to have a lot of live producer guiding all the commentators, and so they were working some from home, some from office spaces, having the clean feeds on their laptops, and they were having a software panel to be able to trigger all the commentators.
So I would say from our point of view, we had no support calls during the games at all. We had nobody on site in Paris, but we had people waiting by the phone, and I'm very pleased to say that we got through that. Looking ahead, what are your plans for the product moving forward? And as the part of the DR or the usage, but as part of the DR requirement, has it ever been called into use as a DR product or DR model? disaster recovery for people who
Partially during the games, we had one office who had unfortunately a dual fiber cut during the games,
Right.
and then we opened the Telos panel so they could keep. So the size is of course hugely reduced, but then they are still able to get. They have a panel. They can still talk to playout. They can still talk to GMCR, and they can keep the coordination with their commentators, which
Right.
is the main important thing. And they can still hear all coordination channels from the central PCR.
and in future scale up.
So right now the goal is really to improve the contribution part,
Yep.
and then we need to really work on leverage the flexibility of the system, meaning that it doesn't really make sense to keep powered on all the time IDR platform, because anyway, if that's not a failover system between the two systems, the difference is too big, the
Yep.
system is too huge to be able to do a switch within a second. So we would need some time to move from if we had a real issue on the main system, we would need some time to move to the DR platform. So we would have plenty of time to power up all the machines in AWS. So the future goal is really to reorganize the machines, be able to shut down the machines on AWS, because the cost is not really cheap
Yeah.
on AWS, and then increase the part of all the on-site stuff, and try to. Today we have several ways of communicating with on-site with the event teams, and that would be really good for a lot of reasons, to have like a single system to have coordination with on-site events. So that would be the next
Fantastic.
goal.
Thank you very much, Anthony.
Thanks to you.
On the screen there, I've just got that's the timeline condensed. I thought I'd do the French ending, but anyway, there we go. Thank you.